Hello and welcome to the Crazy Angels podcast. I'm with Pascal, Dennis, and David Logan. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Hi, guys. Good to see you. We are going to talk about a song from the upcoming album, which is called Pelican Ballet. Pascal, can you please give us a brief introduction to the song?
Yeah, I was in the Caribbean last winter with my family, and my wife and I were on a pier, and we were watching these pelicans fly back and forth and do pirouettes and goof on one another, and then they'd dive and they'd come up with a fish. And this went on for, 20, 30, 40 minutes, and they were having such a great time. And we were having such a great time watching them in the spray, in the sunlight. And I wrote this song, and it was an inspiration. It was just taking in the beauty and the wonder of life at its most fun and most full. So it's a guajira. It's light, it's funny, and it's about the sunny side of life.
Thanks, Pascal. Yeah. David, can you place a little snippet of the song so we have an idea?
Sure.
Thanks.
Here we go.
Is there anything as lovely as a pelican ballet, soaring on a wind swell, then diving through the spray? Pelicans are faithful, I'm told they made for life. You could do far worse than a pelican like wife. Pelicans are friendly, they keep bits all day. I bet they're good company for lonesome castaways. Great white, brown and rose.
There we go. There's a little snippet.
I really love that arrangement, and you're going to talk about it in detail in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
sure.
But just a bit more background on the song. So I was so inspired by the ballet, by the fun, by the lightness, by the spray, by the sunlight, that I wanted a Latin rhythm. And my wife is a fantastic dancer. She teaches dance, actually. So she's taught me, bachata and guajira and samba and of course all the various forms of the salsa. And I tried several different styles, and I finally settled on a guajira, which is one that my wife taught me. The philosophy, the psychology of the song is again this idea of sun colors and moon colors, and art is mixing the two in your personal way so that they set each other off. And this again reflects for me one of the richest stores of human achievement, which is classical Chinese culture, and the core idea of the never-ending cycle between fullness and emptiness, fullness and emptiness, fullness and emptiness, and that intense blazing into life and intense blazing out of life. And our job, as people, is to fully appreciate that, to have a rapport with that, and don't get too high, don't get too low. So when you see the blazing into life, enjoy it, love it, but recognize that it's going to pass. And similarly, when it's fall and the leaves are dying or the pelicans are leaving or whatever is happening, don't get too low. Understand that it's part of the fullness and the emptiness. And you see that in different cultures. There's a wonderful line in Judeo-Christian culture. King Solomon apparently had a ring. And when you saw that ring and things were bad, you felt better. And when things were great, it kind of, brought you down a little bit. And the ring said, "This too shall pass." And that's part of
That's great.
that's part of having a rapport with life. So whether it's Chinese culture or Islamic culture or Judeo-Christian culture or Thai culture or Indian culture, there's the same engagement with the rhythms of life. And I call that a rapport with life, and that's what our job is. So um, this song is written in sun colors. It's happy. It's Guajira. The lyrics are light. So, is there anything as lovely as a pelican ballet soaring on a wind swell, then diving through the spray? Pelicans are friendly. They kibitz all day. I'll bet they're good company for lonesome castaways. Great white, brown, and rosy, and they come in silver gray. Chile to Australia, Mobile to Mandalay. I like zouk and salsa, bossa and reggae, boxing and fly fishing. I'm a poor man's Hemingway. I write goofy poems to pass the time of day. I like loafing by the pier. It's a feathered cabaret. It's a bright and beaky chic and cheeky Pelican Ballet. So that's a little bit of background. That's where it comes from, and I feel it very deeply in my heart. I love pelicans. I love all goofy animals and goofy people, for that matter. Which is why I'm with these two guys here.
You see, I didn't need to say that. My laugh said it. The laugh said everything.
Goofy is a concept from Chinese classical poetry and philosophy, by the way. It's a good thing. Well, with that, I'll pass the baton to you all to discuss the
Speaking of goofy,
arrangement.
Speaking of goofy,
Speaking
people,
of goofy,
look at me. So, first of all, this is pelicans. Growing up in Toronto, Canada, we didn't see pelicans. They're a tropical bird. And so, Pascal chose a Latin theme for this. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, this idea of quote unquote Latin music and cultural appropriation. And I think what's the most important thing is just to acknowledge what came out of the islands,
Oh, yeah.
Tito Puente, Ignacio Pinheiro.
Oh.
Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Burning Spear, Toots and the Maytals. I mean, the island. I mean, you have wawanko, merengue, cha-cha-cha, mambo, and I won't. Well, I'll say it just to educate. Salsa, but Tito Puente, who is the mambo king, said, "Don't call my music sauce. Salsa means sauce." So, my teacher Eduardo Uribe. Actually was the drummer of Ray Barretto, who's one of the greatest conga players of all time. And, once we were in a class, we were studying bachata, which is a Brazilian rhythm, and one of my fellow students said something about Latin music, and Eduardo stopped. He's like, "Stop! Never call music of Brazil Latin. In some parts of the world, you can get killed for saying this." Because, people in Latin America and in the islands, and then you have people in Brazil, and it's very separate. It's like you have the Germans and the Austrians, it's like two different cultures. Americans and Canadians, like we're not the same, right? So, yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to acknowledge, just say some of the names of these, iconic. So much music came out of the Caribbean.
Nothing like it.
So many different styles, and I really believe, first of all, because of the isolation factor, right? So things on islands tend to be more expensive overall, like even musical instruments, for example, because it's more difficult to ship things. You're incurring all that cost. And so, especially with son, which son is the native Cuban, musical form that was the backbone of what we call mambo, which what most people call salsa. So when you have Cuban son, a lot of those rhythms came from Africa, okay, and certainly the drums did. So. In West African Ghanaian drumming, you have kidi, sogo, and kagan. These are three distinct drums, which is kind of like you could think of it like a tenor, or baritone, a tenor, and an alto or something like that. So
Cool.
sort of low, mid, and high drum. And we'll call it Latin music, you have also the timbal, the conga, and the quinto. And these are the three drums that are the backbone. And originally it was played by three players. And then, eventually one guy said, hey, you know what? I can play all three parts, look. And people are like, oh, wow, then we only have to pay one conga player? Wow. They are collectively, those three drums, known as congas, but conga is specifically the center drum, or the mid drum. Anyway, cool. I digress. So I just wanted to kind of point this all out.
This is, if I might just say, this is wonderful, folks. You're listening to a maestro here, and it's such an honor for me to play with these guys. It's crazy. Well, I just learned so much from this guy. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, no, you're not interrupting. It's a discussion. It's a podcast. Remember, we're in a goofy place, so we can goofily interrupt each other. Anyway, the point of all this is that, when we make Latin music, okay, for Pascal's project, we're not trying to, recreate that. And even though I deeply studied those rhythms for 4 years with one of the greatest drummers and conga players ever, I think, well, maybe that's a stretch, but because he is my hero, he was my teacher, right? So, he was actually the reason I chose Berkeley in the first place, because, I wanted to study with Ed Uribe. So wow. This is before I got into production and composing. I was going to be a drummer. Anyway, I just want to say all this to point out before, I guess my point is, with cultural appropriation, there's many different kinds. And I think some people understand the culture from which they're borrowing. And, so in other words, I studied legit, Brazilian, West African, and Afro-Cuban drumming. And then there are some people who appropriate who have absolutely no knowledge. And here's what I want to say. I'm leading you, but not to the place that you think. Both are equally valid and awesome and good and okay. So, whether you know the culture or you don't, if you feel like you want to take from that culture, take. Because this is how music grows. You don't have to know, Kiri Sogo and Kagan, and you don't need to know Wawanko and merengue and son and Ignacio Pinheiro. It doesn't matter if you know any of this stuff. If you feel something from that music, take it. Take it.
If I could just add, at the boundaries between cultures is where you get the richest blending, the richest learning. And that's where new things are created. So David and I grew up on the streets of Toronto. Okay, yep. It's a cold Canadian city. Does that mean we shouldn't be playing reggae or ska or guajira? Exactly. Well, no. We grew up with it. That's part of who we are as Torontonians, right? All that stuff, the food, the festivals, the cultures, the restaurants, that's who we are.
And I will just do a quick little shout out here, since we're talking about Toronto streets and island music, to Dub Maddox. So most people don't really know him. He's not a household name, but as in Jamaican circles, he is one of the most respected DJ/beat makers. He has his own loop packs. I mean, he and I grew up together, and we were in many bands together. And we went to a high school that was 40% Jamaican, 40% Italian, and 20% everything else.
That was was that Oakville,
Oakwood,
or was that Forest?
Yeah,
it was Oakwood. Yeah, I know.
Oakwood,
well, I lived in the neighborhood. Yeah.
So, and it had a very famous music program, in fact.
No kidding. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of some of the most famous indie bands ever in Toronto came out of Oakwood, like Metric, the band Metric. Stars, another band. These guys are very, very famous. I mean, Metric opened up for the Rolling Stones at Madison Square Gardens. Like, that's kind of the level they achieved. So anyway, but going back to my friend Jesse King, known as Dub Maddox, he tours all over Jamaica, and he plays his music, and it's like deep dub, man. I mean, it's like, and he studied it, and he knows it inside out and backwards. And it's like, I've seen a few videos where it's like, this little white boy, on the stage doing his things, and then all these dreadlock rastas like bowing down to the Church of the Sound System. And sound systems basically were these sort of touring groups of DJs, really. And they had these massive, massive stacks of speakers, and they would compete in Jamaica, to kind of throw the best parties. Now, funny enough, that actually migrated to DJ Kool Herc, who is considered one of the original pioneers of hip hop. He was from Jamaica, and he brought the idea of the sound system to New York City, to the Bronx, and brought that tradition into the Bronx, which then turned into hip hop as we know it today. Yeah. The idea of toasting, on the mic, or rapping, like that's what they call basically rapping in Jamaica is called toasting. Anyway, it's an incredible story, and this is all due to one thing: cultural appropriation. So it doesn't matter if you know the culture or you don't. If you feel it and it's genuine, authentic, go with it, man, and just ignore the haters, because a hater's gonna hate and a potato's gonna potate. Okay,
That's well said, man. That's well said.
But